fast forward any come watch on so I politics are winning. Podcast stories and training because make headlines. Na jemre na edi exum walksi. Nidi mni ahun broxy mo mesro say queen simo. Ye queen simo. Enra man pan ede Galamsey hu sensema etudwa. Nim before omukabiye omuwum. Nana ma trankunyanom ahemfo asem na mekan. We ni fro honso a military pretenders. Attorney General, Omina, Ebai, Ebekasa, Efa, Quam Befasoa, Umbitimi abo to Galamsey assay. Namino Cassay, Lawyer Martin Bibu, one a year na pamphor attraxy. In semi Umudu Musco, now Umatima digestinoma, Amaminum Yatinoma sepai bar. At this point in time, young Sembre, young Co Asway, near Rediaco and India, Abra, Mo a Jembre, or Sasimium. How each politics are winning.
The integrity of Imani was on board this morning against the integrity of the statement of Dr. Zato. So now you have clarified your position and emphatically stated that this is not the case. Thank you.
No. That's not what he said.
No.
Don't bend your credibility.
No. Listen, I think let's not go any further.
You have a long way to go in this political.
That's not what he said.
He has
about 60%.
And the only thing that can keep you going is your integrity.
If you've lost 60% of your integrity, of your popularity.
I think safeguarded.
Let's say 60%. I think you save yourself.
Safeguarded.
Let's have this conversation beyond this.
If you save myself, no. You see,
hold on, gentlemen. Hold on.
It's the only thing you have going for you in this public space.
Okay. Thank you. Now, let's hear the president yesterday when he met the CSOs on this Galamsey matter. Take a look.
One of the important successes is the change in the whole issue of excavators. Excavators came in huge quantities, and I remember that at a point under the previous administration, they asked that permits be gotten before excavators are imported. Meanwhile, the law did not say you should get a permit after, but that was what we came to meet, that you bring the excavator, then you go to the Ministry of Transport and ask for a permit. But the law actually says that you must get a permit before you import the excavator. And so now we're enforcing that law. And so you can't bring an excavator in, you can't put it on a ship, and we're telling the shipping agencies, if you bring an excavator for which there's no permit, we shall penalize you, the shipping agency, for carrying that excavator here to Ghana. What are we doing to the Kingpins? Because most of those 1,400 who have been arrested are young youth who are looking for something to be able to look after themselves. And we'll prosecute them, we'll imprison them. But those who run those operations are the ones that we must be arresting and imprisoning, not these little boys, And so we need to change our strategy. We can arrest the boys and all that. And I think that even if we send them, they should be given a leaner sentence by the judge, a slap on the wrist. But those who must be given, there's no slap on the wrist. What's the least sentence?
That's the president there. Darrell, you are at this meeting. Did this meeting tick the box for you? The expectation that you went into this meeting with, or it's another round table, or is it a talk shop conversation with very little conviction that something different and far-reaching was going to be done in the fight against Galamsey?
Alfred, so yes, I'm very happy that we're coming back to this topic and this issue. As you all know, we've been dealing with Galamsey for a long time. I would say, in this very current state of we seeing it as a crisis, it's almost a decade. And if you look at this convening, let me just try to respond to you directly. We actually went in not expecting much. I must be frank with you. You realize that we deliberately refused to even communicate. There were a lot of calls from media asking, what are your expectations? We said, look, we are going in with an open mind because we don't know what the president is going to say. And with that also, we weren't really keen on getting any real pronouncement from this particular. But I think what really happened, let's be frank, was that this serves the opportunity for the president to update the state, everybody, citizens, on where we are now. The state of Galamsey, the fight against Galamsey, the actions and efforts they are putting in place, and whether we are getting results or not. But I think also that if you look at the way the whole meeting was done, I felt it was as if the president was meeting with the media. But this was, you were going to meet CSOs. CSOs are not people who will take the information and just ask you 1 or 2 questions, and then you say, okay, we are done with the meeting. It was almost like a 3-hour meeting, the way it panned out. And so I thought that, wait, we could have had more time to engage, but we saw that it was almost like the way the president meets the media. So you are invited, a lot of the sector ministers debrief on issues, on what they are doing, and then you ask, I think questions were about 10 or maybe 11 questions were asked by our own colleagues and all of that, and that was it. And then it was followed by the president's briefing. After that, no further comments, nothing, and then we're gone. And that's why I'm saying that it was more of a briefing, giving us information on what was happening across the fight against Galamsey, but not really an opportunity to engage the president and say, look, yes, you've made this point, but this is also some of the issues we've seen on the ground that will really mean that we need to relook at these strategies. And so for me, I think that, yes, we were all there, a lot of us were there, but we didn't get opportunity to really ask the very fitting questions that we really wanted. And also for a lot of the questions that were asked, we didn't see responses that really address the issues. And I say this because, look, I think most people, when it comes to this discussion, we're looking forward to the president making some pronouncement on the call for the state of emergency. And I must indicate here that we as a coalition and also civil society have significantly moved on, particularly when the president met the media and said that, look, as a country, we are not there yet. So we were not going there expecting him to make any new pronouncement regarding the state of emergency. But I think what we also needed to hear from the president at this crucial meeting was that, look, you are saying that we are not there yet. Citizens therefore needed to be given some clear benchmarks and milestones that you think as a president will trigger. But I think the best we got was the fact that, look, I need to get some feedback from the National Security Council before I can be able to speak to this matter. That did not respond to us. And I must say that I have quite a tall list of quite a lot of issues that I know that the president, the session or the meeting really brought out. And as we speak to these issues and we go ahead, I will want to lay them out as we go, because they talked about, we're working on 5-point areas that they were focusing on. Talk about stakeholder engagement, regulatory reforms, law enforcement, livelihood and sustainability. And these are some of the issues that the president or the discussion touched upon. A lot of the briefing we received was all on these areas. But I think one thing I must say about this meeting with the president, he did acknowledge some mistakes. And that for me was a good side of the president in admitting that the early strategy of just pushing out or rolling out the military to go to the sites and try to clamor out these illegal miners did not go as planned. And that is why they had to re-strategize and come to now what I see as the government's main trump card. That's the NAIMOS unit, which has been set up to really ensure that they go on the ground with boots, with men and women with boots on the ground to ensure that they deal with this canker. So I think it's for me a good side of it. But largely, there were too many promises.
Too many promises.
Too many promises, because these were also promises we had before the government took office. And in the early months, I'll say, couple of months when they were in office also, they reiterated these promises. And still, these promises are still on the table. We have not seen them being addressed, and these promises are still yet to be, I will say, addressed. So for me, there are still too many promises. Some of them are very good. We are excited about it. But it's about time we see the president of the land really live up to these promises and commit to them and really deal with them. They are very fundamental to we achieving very good results and outcomes in the fight against Galamsey. So far, from the discussion, a lot of activities, a lot of efforts are in the way, but are we there yet? That is a big no. So I think we really need to look at that aspect of it. And even though many have said, the president has had just 9 months, are we not expecting too much? But the truth is, coming from the crisis that we are faced with, and knowing that this government has all the power, and even within their own caucus, they agree that, look, the way this issue is, if we had the power, if we had all the authority, we would solve it in a few weeks and all of that. We should have seen more of these things being done. And that is why we think that a lot more could have been done within this 9 months. That has not been done. And going forward, I think that the promises are many. We need to see them being addressed as we move along. That is the only way we are going to win the fight against Galamsey.
I see. And you talk about the period that this administration has been in office. I think that was one of the references. The president did indicate that they know, or this administration knows, that this is a fight that will not or cannot be won within this first 8-9 months. Is it a point you contest, or you think that a lot more this fight could have been won within this period, the last 8-9 months?
No, I think we agree that it is not a fight that you are going to be able to wake up one day and then just shoot a bullet and you deal with it. It's something that must be progressive. But we are looking at how progressive it's been within the period, the 9 months that we were talking about. Look, if you compare the fight against Galamsey to how quickly the government was able to roll out things like the gold board and all of that, I expected several regulatory reforms and dealing with Galamsey, which was also going to deal with a lot of the impunity on the ground, should have been done by now. We had issues with LI 2462, and then even the review of Act 703 and all of that. We're talking about excavators being restricted in terms of imports and all of that. We are talking about tagging, licensing of excavator. All of these things could have been done by now and concluded and already operational. It's 9 months. Gold board is actively in place, already raking in a lot of, I'll say, revenue for the country, and even giving money for people to be arrested for, being involved or escaping arrest and all of that. But we are still struggling with some of these fundamental regulatory reforms that are critical to ensuring that the fight against Galamsey is on a good track to being addressed. So for me, this is where we have a problem with. 9 months is quite a long time to have seen that some of these regulatory reforms are in place. And now let me also mention this. The government's drum card, like I said, for this fight against Galamsey, you can clearly see is we're going to rely a lot on the work of NAIMOS in the coming months. Yeah. But even with NAIMOS,
you see them on the screen right now, going to this Galamsey site, burning some of their equipment and so on.
Exactly. Even with NAIMOS, Alfred, they don't have the resources to deploy. Last week, the Honorable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources declared that our forest reserves and rivers are security zones. But Alfred, NAIMOS is not even deployed to these security zones. So what is really the implication of you announcing that areas are security zones, but there's no security in place? So these are, for me, the keys. Are we really ready, as we say, to really fight this canker? And that is where the problem is.
And you say you don't see the readiness?
If you look at other sectors of the economy and how the government has been very proactive and all of that, the critical aspect of the fight against Galamsey and the readiness measures that we should have seen by now, I think we are still talking about. And that's why I said a lot of good promises, but we are not seeing them being fulfilled. And this is where it makes us really uncomfortable and really also kind of start getting frustrated by the way the government claims that they are really committed to addressing the fight against Galamsey.
Well, there's one issue that people came up in a different form, but it's still in connection to the 48-hour rule that you've been passionately and consistent about. We abiding by the details of that particular rule, not because you, together with the like-minded persons, got our jurisprudence to appreciate why this is important, The Attorney General referenced it as, in his word, not a challenge per se, but it's an issue they have to deal with, even with the fight against Galamsey. But this is what government identified as a root cause of Galamsey. This is a presentation that was done by the Minister in charge of Lands and Natural Resources yesterday when you were there with him to meet the president. And it says limited awareness of environmental and health risk associated with Galamsey contributes to its prevalence. Weak enforcement of the mining regulations allow illegal activities to flourish. They also talk about the issues. Next, you have the unemployment, poverty, and limited access to opportunities drive many to engage in illegal mining as a means of livelihood. Corruption among political officials and law enforcement agencies exacerbates the problem and undermines our effort to combat this menace. So, government acknowledges that there is some element of the persons who are benefiting from this being in the political class. As to what is being done to address it is another matter altogether. Do you see anything extensive being done to address this particular issue? Because this is a root cause that they have seen. They know the corruption among the political officials in the fight against Galamsey.
I think you're very right. I mean, I was discussing with Ken sitting by me when this was put on the screen. They were like, wait, point 2 and 4 should be the top. Should actually be just the root causes of why we have Galamsey with us. The other issues are really there, but point 2 and 4. Point 2 is about weak enforcement of regulations, and then 4 is on corruption among political officials and law enforcement agencies. That for us is why we are here. The crisis we are confronted with is all because of point 2 and point 4. Everything else is really very much of an underlying problem, which is kind of systematic.
The point 2 being the weak enforcement
of mining regulations.
I see. And then the point 4.
And then point 4, which has to do with corruption of political officials and law enforcement. I mean, there are people, whether there is jobs or not, people in many communities are really struggling to find livelihood, and some are struggling to find jobs and all of that. But I say this is because if you talk about, say, 15 years ago, and you're asking about, when people are talking about job opportunity, nobody will have thought about going to do Galamsey with the kind of impunity we see now. People will be thinking about getting a piece of land, going to do cocoa farming, or going to do some other agricultural enterprise to generate revenue. But now, if you go to the communities, and if you ask them, if I give you resources, what will you do? Nobody will think about agriculture anymore. They will think about going to do gold mining, because we are very weak in terms of enforcing the regulations around the mining. And then also there's a lot of complicity of politically exposed persons, or even sometimes people in office, who are actually making sure that we are not able to really rein these issues in. So it is really the fact that some of these causes are really responsible for what we are faced with. But point 2 and 4 are the major reasons why we are faced with this crisis, and leading to our water bodies, our forest reserves, our food systems, and health being put at risk, not only for generations now, but also for the future generations.
People, I hear the Minister in charge of Natural Resources talk about the review of the mining laws. That's to respond to that point 2 that you referenced. And then also, LI 2505 will now be tabled before Parliament.
No, actually, LI 2501 is the amendment of LI 2462. Yes.
So 2462 will be repealed. When Parliament resumes. And that would now be replaced by LI 2501. That is the amended.
But I think that is very curious, because it's not gone to Parliament yet. So how are we able to determine already that the new repeal act, the repeal LI would be 2501? Are we able to tell that already? Who knows? It's a law-making process, and there might be another law that might come even before that. So how do we even know that it's really going to be 2505? It's quite strange for me.
Okay. On this one, quickly.
Yeah. So yes, in terms of the amendment and repeal, okay, what it is that, you know, even before this particular meeting, it had already been said that there will be a repeal of the law. So this is not the place the president is making the first pledge. I think it came in some weeks ago. And even prior to some weeks ago, they promised that the whole LI will be repealed. For me, what really got me, right, and on the president's side was that soon after he won, the 120-day promise, I think in there somewhere, they said it. They're not going to do any more mining in forests. And that is very key. Very, 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 very key. So it's like, stop the bleeding. You see, we're already bleeding. Akuffo was issuing mining leases willy-nilly, especially in the forest reserve. We know how many times I've mentioned the Tiwa forest case. And Daryl is one of my clients. That's Arocha, 2019. When they said, no, they need jobs. So let's go into the Tiwa and mine anyhow, right? But when the president took over, for me, the key thing is that he's promised, at least I've heard it not less than 3 times, where he's promised that there would be no mining in the forest. And that's huge. That is a huge step forward, right? And so, you know that even the 9 forest reserves that the Galamseyers were in, we took them back. Then the Galamseyers went back into 2. Then we went in back and flashed them, right? So my point is that and now we have permanent security forces stationed there. And I always like to invoke Article 210 to say that it's the police duty, because Article 210 says that soldiers are for external aggression and other developmental needs. And if you go to 200, it says the police is to maintain law and order, right? So once now we have permanent presence in these 9 forests, for me, I think we should, well, short of saying celebrating, I think we should commend the government for it, because, you know, when you do that, then they see that we are following the conversation. That's how come for me. I saw that yesterday's engagement was very positive. Yeah. Because initially, some people I said, oh, it's a talk shop, it's needless. I said, how? It's for you to go and make a new pitch to the president. Like we say locally, we sit here and talk. He hasn't seen you in person, but when you go and then you have an opportunity to make a new pitch, you see that even the arguments get refined. Because yesterday, one thing I followed was that, you know, hitherto we had all been talking about turbidity. But yesterday, can Ashibe move the conversation forward? They said, Mr. President, it's not just about turbidity, but the quality, the best measure.
There's a water quality index.
Thank you. So you see how now the conversation is moving forward. So those who said, no, it's a talk shop, it's needless, spoke too early. How many times we started reading the Bible as kids? Are we still not reading the Bible? And for that matter, also the Quran and the Torah and all the other religions. So sometimes I think we should hasten slowly. So for me, the taking over of the 9 forests is a key step forward. And before even that, number 1 is the fact that no more mining lines.
We aim to hold the team course channel so. Mamma so Jimmy Award, the Senate of India don't be Edominia. When you essentially near some constant Kusukra.